I have another question. On the ID scanners that you're proposing to purchase, are those going to be gifted to businesses? Because this is kind of where government goes off the rails.
Sure.
We're handing the free stuff over, and then a follow-up to that then would be the data collection on those. Who controls that information?
Sure. So, in terms of gifting the ID scanners, the last prevention grant that we had, I purchased similar ID scanners, and those are housed at LARAMIE Police Department.
Okay.
The bars have to check those out.
Do they?
From LPD. Yes.
They do?
They do use them, yep. So that was the plan with these ones as well, to be able to check those out. And then in terms of collecting the data, the data that we get from those would be collected by our data analyst that would be hired under this grant. And that's strictly for to meet the compliance of the grant. They would collect information about their age and gender, but beyond that, there's no identifying information in that data.
You actually quoted that it would frequency and
Frequency,
use.
sorry, yeah. Yep, so it would tell you how many times that patron has been to an establishment.
Okay. And that becomes public information at that point?
No, it would say confidential.
Under what auspice?
The grant, do you have any ideas? The grant would just, require us to keep that information confidential. It would just be the confidentiality statements that we submitted with this grant application.
Okay, good. And then I guess, I'm sorry, do you guys have other questions? How much county dollars go into supplementing this? Is this 100% a federal grant just to supplement the program that you guys have? Because I think we need to make that very clear that this is, because I got more than plenty of phone calls over the gymnastic or the cheer thing at the last, and people didn't realize that wasn't county dollars, that wasn't necessarily our oversight, that was a recommendation. So I just want to make it very clear that if we're applying for this, it's federal dollars being used in the community as a added benefit. So,
Yes.
Yeah, just a quick question about the app. If there's a suicide in the community, kind of talk to me about what does that app provide, right?
Well, and this is really prevention, truly prevention. We are trying to connect our students more, and to speak to that, the Connect training is really that. We've had some instances of student suicide on campus that really truly stayed in the silo. That just perpetuates the stigma of suicide. A lot of students were really upset that they weren't able to acknowledge that. And so the Connect training is really that. We are trying to figure out a way for our community to be informed. We don't have to release names, we don't have to, but give the community so that it's not so, it still feels shameful. We still treat suicide as this hush-hush thing. And it's a fact. We can't do that anymore because it continues to perpetuate that stigma of shame and not asking for help. So the app really is encouraging students to reach out to one another, to ask for help. It encourages them to find their friend group. It encourages them to find other adults that they can talk to. It encourages them to find their space where they feel safe. So it really, truly is prevention. The Connect is a little bit more intervention. We are truly trying to connect our community so that when things happen, we can respond as a community and help the people in our community deal with a traumatic death. Instead of hearing about it 3 weeks down the road or, rumor mill gets started. We are a small town, we all know each other. That rumor mill gets just away from us. And so being able to truly connect our community and find a way to help our community deal with traumatic death instead of just not talking about it or dealing with it a month down the road. And so the app really is trying to do, before that, we're trying to connect our students and help them find their safe space.
So on the app, do you discuss the traumatic death?
No, the app is truly for students to talk about their life, to connect. The app is not meant as like a post-vention necessarily. The app is just that, just trying to connect students. We've had a lot of students say they don't feel connected or they have a hard time finding their safe space. The app is truly just like an Instagram, it's them finding another space that they feel safe. But they can talk about their mental health struggles or just their struggles with school or their struggles in life, or it also provides resources. within our community that would help them connect with resources if that's what they feel like they need.
Where are they hearing about that you were discussing on the tragic death? The shame and how's that being addressed?
Well, the shame is really that intervention, that post-vention after a suicide, being able to talk about it as a community instead of not talking about it. Connect is helping your community come together to talk about traumatic death so that it
How and
doesn't.
where do they do that?
What?
How and where do they do that?
So the Connect training is a day-long training with community members within our community. We hope to have law enforcement, somebody from each higher ed institution, our town GAM representatives are a part of it. And you go through, it's actually a 2-day training where you learn how to deal with these things in your community. You all come together, talk about your process, what are the legalities of it as well, so that we all are on the same page. It's really just coming together around traumatic death in your community, and then being able to always have that when we do have a traumatic death in our community. So it's truly a training, and it's called a Connect team, and so it's your community coming together as a team to be able to respond to traumatic death in your community.
And so Tracy, would it be setting up before something like that were to happen, support systems for people that may not have support systems, so that when something happens, they know where to go and where they can talk about it?
Absolutely. And, another thing that we talked about is a lot of our university students, some of our WyoTech students and our LCCC students are from Wyoming. And in those instances, when it's a Wyoming kiddo, it also gives us the ability to reach out to the communities that they're from and just say, hey, this is going on, this happened, how can we lend support? There are Connect teams in a lot of Wyoming communities across the state. So being able to connect with them and have those conversations. We're unique where a lot of our kids do come here. And so being able to reach out and just say, hey, this is happening. Your community is going to also have to deal with a traumatic death in your community, even though it happened here in Wyoming. Those kiddos are from across Wyoming. And we see Wyoming as all, there are kids, they come here, and we hope that we can help in that sense as well.
You keep referring to them as kids, but we're talking about adults.
You're right. I know.
We're quantifying how much it costs to babysit an adult in some of these cases.
Yeah.
Nothing against the program or the grant,
Right.
but we are sometimes quantifying how much it costs to babysit adults in this community.
Yeah. Oh.
Okay.
Well, I have to push back on that. Mental health is not babysitting. Mental health is help. And if we had students with broken legs, we wouldn't just babysit them and say, fix your own leg. And as a person who deals in this space a bit and understands the confluence between mental health and physical health, there are studies that exist today that if people have 2 comorbidities, high blood pressure, diabetes, there's trauma associated with those comorbidities. So to understand that they're not part of health, to understand they have a real impact on a person's health, is not to be in keeping with the latest that is being discussed. So.
And I have nothing against the mental health portion,
Yeah.
but we do have some folks in this community that don't have mental health issues, but we get here and the county has to deal with the brunt of the behavior. So.
Well, if anybody's dealt with 18 to 25-year-olds,
Oh, I know
their brain is
they're
trying to
definitely
figure
not
things out. It's a
not
tough
in the
age.
adulthood stage. But
Yes,
yeah.
yes, for sure.
And that precisely is the kiddo part.
Yeah.
May I have
I'd entertain a motion to approve the application as presented.
Second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Item 9,